Imagine you're sitting in a cafe on an ordinary Tuesday morning, coffee in hand, laptop open, going through emails. The door opens. Someone walks in, an older person, maybe in their 50s or 60s. They look around the room, and their eyes lock onto you. They walk straight to your table, sit down without asking permission, look directly into your face, and say your full name, not just the name everyone knows, your legal name including the middle name you never use. Then they say the address where you lived when you were 7 years old, a house your family moved out of 20 years ago, information that isn't in any public record. They describe the inside of your childhood bedroom, the exact placement of your bed, the poster on the wall, the nickname your grandmother called you that nobody else ever used, and then they say the sentence that stops your heart. I know these things because I'm you, 30 years older. I've come back to this moment because what happens next week will destroy your life, and I'm here to stop it. You'd think they were insane. A stalker who researched your background, a con artist running an elaborate scam, until they tell you something that hasn't happened yet. A specific event, detailed and precise. And 1 week later, it happens exactly as they predicted, word for word, moment for moment. 3 documented cases. 3 people who met themselves across time. 3 encounters with physical proof that shouldn't exist. 3 lives changed by warnings from futures that haven't happened yet. Welcome to the impossible reality of meeting yourself. Emma Sullivan was 24 years old when her life split into 2 timelines, September 15, 2023, Portland, Oregon. A cafe called Sterling Coffee on the corner of 5th and Morrison. Emma was a graphic designer, freelancing, struggling to build a client base, drinking her 3rd coffee of the morning while tweaking a logo design on her laptop. It was 9:47 a.m. She remembers the exact time because she checked her phone right before the woman sat down. The woman was older, maybe mid-50s, with graying hair and lines around her eyes that somehow looked familiar. She didn't ask to join Emma, just pulled out the chair across from her and sat. Emma looked up, annoyed, about to say the table was taken. But before she could speak, the woman said, "Emma Sullivan, born May 3rd, 1999. You lived at 847 Pine Street until you were 8 years old. Your bedroom was upstairs, 2nd door on the left. You had a cat named Mr. Whiskers. You buried him in the backyard when you were 12. Emma's blood went cold. The Pine Street address was never listed publicly. Her family had moved when she was in 3rd grade. The house had been sold twice since then. Nobody knew about that address. Nobody except family. And Mr. Whiskers. That cat had been hers. She'd never told anyone outside her immediate family about burying him. Never posted about it. Never mentioned it to friends. It was a private childhood grief she'd carried quietly. The woman leaned forward. Her eyes were intense, focused, almost desperate. I know these things because I'm you, Emma. 31 years from now. I'm 55 years old, and I've come back to this exact moment because I need to warn you. Emma wanted to run, wanted to scream, wanted to believe this was some sick joke, but the woman kept talking. In 6 days, on Friday, September 21st, you're going to receive an email from a company called Vertex Design. They're going to offer you a full-time position, senior designer, salary, benefits, relocation to San Francisco. It's going to seem like everything you've been working toward, your big break. Emma shook her head. I'm not interviewing anywhere. I don't know any company called Vertex. The woman smiled sadly. You will. The email arrives Thursday morning. Unexpected. They found your portfolio online. The offer will be generous, more money than you've ever made, and you'll be tempted to accept immediately. Emma's hands were shaking. This was insane. But the woman's face, there was something about her face, the shape of her jaw, the way her eyebrows curved. It looked like, no, that was impossible. The woman continued, Don't take the job, Emma, I'm begging you. Take the freelance contract that comes from the Austin client instead. I know it seems smaller, less impressive, but trust me, if you take the Vertex job within 3 months, you'll lose everything. Emma found her voice. Why? What happens? The woman stood up. I can't tell you more. Knowing too much might change things in ways I can't predict. Just remember, Vertex Design, September 21st. Say no. She turned and walked toward the door. Emma scrambled to follow, knocking her laptop sideways, coffee spilling. By the time she reached the door, the woman was gone, vanished. Emma ran outside. The street was crowded. She searched faces. Nothing. The woman had disappeared. Emma went back inside, heart pounding, hands still shaking. She sat back down at her table, staring at the spilled coffee spreading across the wood. Had that actually happened? She looked around. Other customers were absorbed in their own conversations, their own screens. Nobody seemed to have noticed anything unusual. Emma checked her phone. No texts, no missed calls, just the time. 10:03 a.m. 16 minutes had passed. She opened her laptop, tried to focus on work, but couldn't. The woman's words kept replaying. September 21st. Vertex Design. Don't take the job. That night, Emma couldn't sleep. She Googled Vertex Design. Real company, San Francisco-based. They did branding for tech startups. Respectable portfolio, nothing suspicious. Thursday morning, September 19th, Emma woke up to an email notification. Subject line, exciting opportunity, senior designer position. Sender, Vertex Design. Emma's stomach dropped. She opened the email with trembling hands. The message was professional, enthusiastic. They'd found her portfolio on Behance, loved her work, wanted to offer her a senior designer position. Salary, $75,000 per year. Full benefits, relocation assistance. Start date, November 1st. It was everything Emma had been working toward. Financial stability, recognition, a real career. And it had arrived exactly when the woman said it would. 2 days early, not 6 days. But close enough. Emma stared at the email for an hour. Then she checked her other messages. And there it was. An email from an Austin-based startup she'd done some freelance work for months ago. They wanted to contract her for a 6-month project. Steady income, remote work, smaller than Vertex, but solid. Emma's hands hovered over the keyboard. Every logical part of her brain screamed to accept Vertex. This was her dream, but the woman's face, the impossible knowledge, the desperate tone. If you take the Vertex job, you'll lose everything. Emma closed her eyes and declined Vertex Design, accepted the Austin contract.
3 months later, November 2023, Vertex Design announced bankruptcy. The company had been involved in financial fraud. Investigations revealed embezzlement, unpaid contractors, forged documents. Everyone who'd joined the company in the fall hiring wave, including the design team Emma would have been part of, lost their jobs with no severance. Many had relocated to San Francisco, signing leases, uprooting their lives. They were stranded, unemployed, in one of the most expensive cities in America. Emma would have been one of them, but she wasn't. Because a woman who claimed to be her from 2054 had sat down in a cafe and warned her. Emma checked the cafe's security footage later, requested it from the manager, claiming she'd left something behind and wanted to see if anyone picked it up. The manager showed her the recording. The timestamp showed 9:47 to 10:03 a.m. Emma on screen, sitting at her table, working on her laptop. At 9:52, she looks up, appears startled. Her mouth moves. She's clearly speaking to someone, but the chair across from her is empty. For 11 minutes, Emma has an animated conversation with nobody. At 10:03, she suddenly stands, knocks her laptop, spills her coffee, and runs to the door. Alone. There was never anyone else there. David Martinez was 35 years old when he found proof he would travel through time. May 2024. Chicago. He'd been cleaning out his grandfather's attic after the old man passed away. Boxes of photographs, documents, memorabilia from a life spanning 86 years. David's grandfather had owned a small grocery store in the 1950s and 60s. Hard-working immigrant who built a life from nothing. David had loved him deeply. Going through his things felt like archaeology, uncovering layers of family history. One box contained photographs, black and white prints, edges yellowed with age. David sorted through them carefully. His grandfather as a young man, his grandmother, family gatherings, the store. And then David saw a photograph that made time stop. The photo was dated on the back in faded pencil, June 1952. It showed his grandfather, age 28, standing outside the family grocery store. The sign above the door was visible. The street was recognizable, but what made David's hands start shaking wasn't his grandfather. It was the man standing next to him. David knew that face, knew it better than any other face in the world, because it was his own. The photograph showed two men, David's grandfather in 1952, and David, current-day David, same age, same features, same distinctive scar above his left eyebrow from a bicycle accident when he was 16, a scar that happened in 2005, 53 years after this photograph was taken. The man in the photo was wearing modern clothes, jeans with a cut that didn't exist in 1952, shoes with a design decades ahead of their time, and he was standing there, casually, next to David's grandfather, as if this were perfectly normal. David turned the photo over. Read the date again. June 1952. Flipped it back. Stared at his own face looking back at him from 72 years in the past. David tried to rationalize it. Maybe a relative. A distant cousin with similar features. But the scar. Nobody else in the family had that scar. And the face wasn't similar. It was identical, down to the exact shape of his jaw. The way his left ear stuck out slightly more than his right. The small mole beneath his right eye. This wasn't a look-alike. This was him. David took the photograph to Northwestern University, the photo forensics lab. He needed proof this was fake, a manipulation, anything that would make sense. The lab analyzed it for 2 weeks. Chemical composition, paper aging, print process. The results came back definitive. Authentic 1952 photograph. Silver gelatin print consistent with period photography. Paper and chemicals matched manufacturing processes from the early 1950s. No evidence of digital manipulation because digital photography wouldn't exist for another 40 years. No evidence of composite techniques. No double exposure. No tricks. Just a genuine photograph from 1952 showing David's grandfather and a man who was physically impossible to be there, but was. David showed the photo to surviving family members. His elderly aunt, his grandfather's younger sister, looked at it and frowned. "I don't remember this," she said. "Who's that man with him?" David's father studied it for a long time. "I've never seen this photo before, but that man." He looked up at David. "That's you. Exactly you." Nobody had explanations. Nobody remembered a mysterious visitor in 1952. David's grandfather had died in 1998. He'd never mentioned anything about a strange encounter, about someone from the future, about a man who looked like his grandson before his grandson was born. The photograph sat on David's desk now. Proof of something that hasn't happened yet. Or has already happened, depending on how you looked at time. Because if David appears in a photograph from 1952, that means at some point in his future, he will travel to 1952. Will meet his grandfather. Will stand outside that grocery store and have his picture taken. It's not a prediction. It's a certainty. Documented. Preserved. Waiting. Michael Torres was 29 years old when he received a phone call from himself. March 8, 2024. 11:47 p.m. He was lying in bed, scrolling through his phone before sleep, when it started ringing. The number on the screen made him do a double take. It was his own number. His phone was calling itself. Michael stared at it. This had happened once before, a glitch where a spam call spoofed his number. He almost declined, but curiosity made him answer. "Hello?" The voice on the other end was his own voice. Exactly his voice. Same tone. Same slight rasp. Same regional accent. "Michael, listen to me. This is going to sound insane, but I'm you. Calling from 10 years in the future, March 8th, 2034. And I need you to listen." Michael sat up. His heart was pounding. This was a prank. Had to be. Someone with voice-matching software. But the voice continued. "I know what you're thinking.
This is impossible. Someone's messing with you. But I'm going to tell you something only you know. When you were 8 years old, you stole a $20 bill from your mother's purse, bought a video game, never told anyone.
You still feel guilty about it. Michael's breath caught. That was true. He'd never told anyone that story. Never confessed. It was a childhood secret he carried alone. Tomorrow morning, the voice said, at 6:15 a.m., you're going to get a text from Jake about basketball. Your immediate thought will be that he's still in Tokyo, but his flight got canceled. Weather delay. He's been back for 6 hours. He's going to ask you to play basketball at 10 a.m. at the park on Roosevelt Street. You need to go. Michael found his voice. Why? What happens if I go? You meet someone who changes everything. I can't tell you more than that. Just go. Trust me, I'm you. I've already lived this moment, and the choice you make tomorrow determines whether the next 10 years are what they should be. The call ended. Michael checked his call log immediately. 3 minutes, 47 seconds. Incoming call. From his own number. While he was using his phone, the phone company would later confirm this was technically impossible within their system architecture. The next morning, 6:15 a.m. exactly, Michael's phone buzzed with a text. Jake. Yo, flight canceled, I'm back. Basketball at 10, Roosevelt Park. Michael stared at the message. Everything the caller had said, exactly as predicted. He texted back. Yeah, I'll be there. At 10 a.m., Michael showed up at the basketball court. Jake was there with a few guys. They played a few games. Normal morning. And then she showed up. Anna, a friend of one of Jake's friends. She joined the game. Michael noticed her immediately. They talked afterward, exchanged numbers, started dating 3 weeks later, got engaged 6 months ago, October 2024. Michael's entire life trajectory changed because he went to that basketball court. And he only went because a voice claiming to be his future self told him to. The voice knew impossible details, predicted events that happened exactly as described, and the phone records prove the call existed, from Michael's number to Michael's number, while Michael was using his phone to receive it, which means the call came from a different point in time, from March 8, 2034, from Michael himself, 10 years older, reaching back to ensure his younger self made the right choice. Michael thinks about that sometimes. In a decade on March 8, 2034, will he pick up his phone and call himself in 2024? Will he remember this moment? Will he know what to say? The date approaches. The loop must close. Because if he doesn't make that call, then the call he received never happened. And if the call never happened, he never met Anna. And if he never met Anna, his entire present doesn't exist. He's trapped in a closed timelike curve, a bootstrap paradox. He must become the voice that saved him because the voice already did. The future is reaching back. And Michael is standing in the place where causality bends into a circle. 3 people. 3 impossible encounters. 3 pieces of evidence that shouldn't exist. Emma Sullivan has security footage showing her talking to empty air while declining a job offer that would have ruined her life because a woman who looked like her older self told her to. David Martinez has an authenticated photograph from 1952 showing him standing next to his grandfather decades before he was born, proving he will travel through time whether he understands how or wants to. Michael Torres has phone records of a call from his own number occurring while he was using that number, a call that led him to meet his future wife, a call he will have to make in 2034 or erase his own present. They don't know each other. They live in different cities, different lives. But they're connected by the same impossible truth. Time isn't a straight line. It's a loop. And somewhere in that loop, your future self is reaching back, trying to guide you, warn you, save you from disasters you can't see coming. Emma checks every cafe now, watching for an older woman who might sit down uninvited. David keeps the photograph on his wall, a reminder that his future is already documented in the past. Michael watches the calendar. March 8, 2034 gets closer every day, and when it arrives, he knows he'll pick up his phone, dial his own number from 10 years ago, and say the words that have already saved his life. Because he has no choice. The loop is closed.
The future is written, and meeting yourself isn't a paradox. It's destiny pretending to be coincidence. The three cases share one impossible element. They break causality. Emma avoided disaster because her future self warned her. But if the disaster never happens, why did future Emma need to warn her? David appears in a photograph from 1952, 33 years before his birth, which means his future is documented in the past before he lives it. Michael met his wife because his future self called to tell him where to go, but he only knows to make that call because he went there. These aren't just strange coincidences, they're closed loops in time, events that cause themselves, and according to physics, they're possible. In 1949, mathematician Kurt Gödel discovered something disturbing in Einstein's equations. General relativity allows for what physicists call closed timelike curves, paths through spacetime that loop back to their own beginning. Imagine time not as a straight line, but as a shape that can curve and connect. If spacetime warps severely enough, usually near massive rotating objects like black holes, a traveler moving forward in their own time could arrive in their own past. Not by traveling faster than light, not by breaking physics, by following the natural curvature of spacetime itself. Research published in 2025 by physicist Lorenzo Gavassino claims to have solved the grandfather paradox by combining general relativity with quantum mechanics and thermodynamics. His conclusion: time travel creates no logical contradictions if closed timelike curves exist. You can meet yourself because in curved spacetime, your future and your past occupy the same location. The question isn't whether it's possible. The question is whether our universe contains these curves naturally, and if so, why some people access them. Emma's encounter represents what physicists call the consistency paradox. Her future self warns her to avoid vertex design. Emma takes the warning seriously, declines the job, avoids disaster. But this creates a problem. If Emma never experiences the disaster, how does her future self know to warn her? The answer comes from Russian physicist Igor Novikov's self-consistency principle. The timeline must remain consistent. Emma was always going to avoid vertex design because her future self always warned her. There's no alternate timeline where she takes the job, suffers, and then travels back. There's only one timeline, and in that timeline, the warning and the avoidance happen simultaneously. The older Emma who appeared in the cafe came from a future where young Emma had already declined vertex because older Emma had already warned her. It's a closed loop. The cause and effect happen in a circle with no beginning. Emma avoided disaster, but she carries a strange burden now. She knows her future self experienced something dark enough to warrant traveling back through time. Except that dark timeline never existed for this Emma. She lives in the branch where she was saved. But the woman who saved her came from somewhere. Some version of reality where things went wrong. Emma wonders sometimes if that other version still exists in parallel. If somewhere, another Emma took the vertex job, lost everything, and learned how to travel back to warn herself, creating this timeline as a branch, or whether there was only ever one timeline, and the warning was always part of it. David's case is even stranger because the evidence is physical and predated his birth. The photograph from 1952 shows him standing next to his grandfather. The photo is authentic, no manipulation, no tricks. Which means at some point in David's future he will travel to 1952. This isn't prediction, it's documentation. His destiny is already written in the past. He hasn't traveled yet, but the photo proves he will. This creates what's called a predestination paradox. Events predetermined by evidence from the future. David has no choice. He must travel to 1952 because he already did. Free will becomes questionable. If the photo exists, showing him in the past, can he choose not to go? What happens if he refuses? The answer might be that refusal is impossible, not because anything forces him, but because the timeline is already complete. His 1952 visit already occurred from the perspective of spacetime as a whole. He hasn't experienced it yet from his personal timeline, but objectively, it's done. He's living through the years between now and the moment he steps back into 1952. The photo is proof that his world line loops. David studies the photograph constantly, trying to find clues. What age is he in the photo? Looks about 35. His current age. Does he travel soon? Or does he travel later, but arrive at a time when he looks 35? Why 1952? Why his grandfather? The photo shows them standing casually, no shock on his grandfather's face, which suggests maybe his grandfather knew. Maybe David had already explained. Maybe this was planned. David keeps detailed journals now, documenting everything, because he knows one day he'll need this information. When he figures out how to travel, when the loop closes, he'll need to know exactly what to do. Go to that specific location. Stand in that specific spot. Wear clothes that look modern. Have his photo taken. The loop must close perfectly, or the paradox intensifies. Michael's situation represents the purest form of bootstrap paradox. He met Anna because his future self called to tell him to go to the basketball court. They're engaged now because of that call. But the only reason Michael knows to make that call in 2034 is because he received it in 2024. Where did the information originate? The call created itself. Michael wouldn't have met Anna without the call, but the call wouldn't have happened without Michael meeting Anna. It's a closed causal loop with no beginning. Information appearing from nowhere, creating itself through time. March 8, 2034 approaches. Michael knows what he has to do. At 11:47 p.m., he'll dial his own number from 10 years earlier. He'll tell his younger self about Jake's text, about the basketball court, about the woman he'll meet. He has no choice. If he doesn't make the call he received never happened, which means he never met Anna, which means his entire present unravels. The engagement that exists now depends on him closing the loop. He's trapped in destiny, living out a script that's already been written by his future self, who was following a script written by a more distant future self, all the way back to the original call that created itself. Physicists call this a bootstrap paradox because it's like pulling yourself up by your own bootstraps. Impossible. Yet Michael has the phone records. The call happened, from his number, while he was using that number. The telecommunications company confirmed it's technically impossible in their system, which means the call came from outside their system, from a point in spacetime where his number exists 10 years later. Michael wonders sometimes if he has any free will left. Every action from the call forward was determined by the information from that call. He went to the court because he was told to. He talked to Anna because he knew it was important. He proposed because he's living out the destiny his future self already created. Or is he? Maybe the call only set the first action in motion, and everything after was his choice. Maybe his future self just opened the door, and Michael walked through it freely. He won't know until 2034, until he becomes the voice, until he closes the loop. The security footage from Emma's cafe tells a crucial truth. It shows her talking to empty air. For 11 minutes, she has an animated conversation with nobody, which means either she hallucinated the entire encounter, or the woman existed in a different layer of reality that cameras can't capture. But if it was hallucination, how did Emma know about Vertex Design before the email arrived? How did she know about the Austin client? The predictions came true, which means the woman was real, just not visible to normal recording devices, or not present in this timeline's physical space. Perhaps Emma was seeing across timelines. Her future self reached back not physically, but through some quantum connection, consciousness to consciousness. The conversation happened in Emma's mind, but the information was real, transmitted through closed time-like curves that connect not places but moments of awareness. David's photograph is different. It's physical, tangible, authenticated. He's actually there in 1952, which means his future travel isn't consciousness, it's physical. His body moves through time, appears in the past, exists in two places in the timeline simultaneously. Young David living in 2025, and old David visiting 1952. Michael's phone call is somewhere between. Voice transmitted impossibly, not physical presence, not pure consciousness, but information moving backward through telecommunication systems. 3 different mechanisms, same result. Future reaching back into past. The implications destroy everything we think we know about choice. Emma believes she chose to decline Vertex. But did she? Or was her choice predetermined by the warning from a future that had already happened? David's photo suggests his entire future is already complete. He's going to travel to 1952 because he already did. His choices from now until that moment are an illusion. He'll make the decisions that lead to time travel thinking they're free, but they're actually following the path the photograph has already documented. Michael knows his engagement to Anna stems from a phone call that shouldn't exist. Every moment of their relationship was initiated by information from the future. He's living a life scripted by his own voice from 2034. Free will disappears when future can edit past. Or perhaps free will never existed. Perhaps all of space-time exists as one complete four-dimensional object, and our experience of moving through it sequentially is the illusion. From outside time, Emma's warning, David's photograph, and Michael's call all exist simultaneously with the events they influence. There's no before and after, just a complete structure where all moments connect. Three people living with impossible knowledge. Emma saved from disaster she never experienced. David waiting for the day he must travel to his grandfather's past. Michael counting down to the moment he becomes the voice that saved his life. They can't talk about it publicly. They tried. People think they're delusional. Online forums call them creative writers. Skeptics dismiss the evidence. The photograph must be misidentified. The phone call must be a hacker's prank. The cafe warning must be lucky coincidence. But Emma has security footage showing her alone while talking to someone. David has forensic analysis proving the 1952 photograph is authentic. Michael has telecommunications records confirming the impossible call. The evidence exists. The encounters happened. Time isn't what we think it is. It loops, curves, folds back on itself. And sometimes, at points where the curvature is sharpest, future and past touch. You meet yourself, warn yourself, save yourself, create yourself. The loop closes, and you're left living in a world where every choice might be predetermined by a version of you that hasn't been born yet, but has already reached back to guide you. Emma watches for older women in cafes. David studies physics journals about time travel. Michael marks his calendar. March 8, 2034, the day he closes the loop. The day he becomes the voice. The day he proves that meeting yourself isn't science fiction. It's the inevitable result of living in a universe where time is a dimension you can curve back through. Where your future is already written in your past. Where the person who knows you best isn't your partner or your family. It's you, 30 years older. Reaching back through the fabric of space-time. To warn you. To save you. To ensure you become the person who can reach back and do the same.